Hello, welcome to another episode of The High Ground, powered by Premier Companies. Jeff, how you doing today?
I'm wonderful. Sal, yourself?
Doing awesome.
Good. Who you got for us today?
We have a special guest from Washington, D.C. with us today. Congresswoman Erin Houchin is joining us on the podcast.
That's awesome.
And no matter who you are, Congresswoman, you do not get a break. You still have to do the question of the day. And the question of the day is, tell us about the dumbest way you've ever injured yourself.
Well, I can't tell you the full story, Sal, because that would be way too embarrassing. But I'll tell you part of it. Let's just say that I was doing some yard work in my backyard, and I stepped off of a ledge and I broke my ankle and rolled down the hill. It was caught on camera.
Oh no.
Yeah, on our security footage. So I got made fun of by my family pretty relentlessly. Of course, my husband, Dustin, came out and told me how stupid it was what I was doing, which led to a broken ankle. But I'm on the congressional baseball team, and so I broke my ankle in the comfort of my own backyard instead of in front of 20,000 people at Nat Stadium.
True.
So
Okay.
it was a blessing. It was a blessing, Sal. Blessing in disguise.
If you decide that you want to send us the footage, we can always link it in the podcast. So
I think it's a hard pass on sending the footage. I'll run it up the flagpole, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be a no. In fact, I'm probably I'm signaling my team to make sure that all of that footage is not available somewhere in the cloud.
Well, I've got one when you're in your 50s and you still think you can water ski. And so, that was, probably out there fooling around doing stuff. So I ended up pulling a hamstring and so I suffered in pain for trying to relive my youth again.
How'd they get you out of the water?
Actually, I just kind of drug on the back of a jet ski up to like the beach area, and
you could crawl out.
They backed a Ranger.
It was a slow toe.
One of my buddies actually, it was in a farm pond. So he backs the Ranger down into the water, and they just kind of like threw me in the seat and hauled me up to the vehicle and took me to the hospital.
Oh my God.
So it's thought I got up, I skied for a while. It was just, I had a little equipment failure.
Is it on video though?
No, because they would have released it by now.
Yeah, lucky you.
They're those kind of friends.
Yes.
Yes, that's right.
Well, mine was about, I was going around behind the backhoe, and I had jack stands in both hands for some reason. I don't know what I was doing, but I had my baseball cap pulled down, went right around the backhoe and hit the hoe with the top of my head.
Oh.
And I bounced back, and I'm like, I think I've knocked myself out. And I go down to one knee and drop both jack stands, and I made it up to the house, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I've got ice pack, and then Kim comes in, and she goes, I'm laying in the living room floor with ice on my head, and she goes, what are you doing? I was like, I think I've knocked myself out bad. And I got better. No videos or...
Was it not a vital organ?
No.
Sal, you said you bounced off of it. That seems impossible,
I did. It was, I don't know how that worked.
But no backhoes were injured in that accident?
No. Let's do something serious. Congresswoman, tell us about what's going on in Washington, D.C. You just had a vote, didn't you?
Yeah, we just had a vote to rename the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. So we surveyed that in the district, and 70% said they supported changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. It's not anything that's unprecedented. Presidents change the names of things. We saw it under President Obama, President Biden, and now President Trump. But it was a happy day to be able to rename the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America, and we're excited about it.
Very good.
That's deal. Awesome. So the vote passed?
The bill passed. It'll go to the Senate. We'll see if the Senate can get it out. But it's a good day when we can celebrate the country with something like renaming the Gulf of Mexico.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Good deal. Well, you got a lot going on with the budgets, and I know you've got to get to more things as soon as you're done with the podcast. Hard to believe that there's something more important than the High Ground podcast.
Well, there's nothing more important to me than being on your podcast.
Can you tell us a little bit about the budget reconciliation and what's going on with that?
Yeah, I'm on what you would consider the trifecta of committees for budget reconciliation. I serve on the Energy and Commerce Committee, the Budget Committee, and the Rules Committee, all of which are going to play key roles in reconciliation. What we're trying to do in this process, and reconciliation is the only time that we can go around or go through the filibuster rule. So we don't have to have a 67 votes in the, or 60 votes in the Senate. We only have to have 51. And so it helps us get the agenda through that President Trump has asked us to do without having to go through the filibuster. So we're trying to put as much as we can in the reconciliation bill. There are rules under which we can and can't do things, but primarily what you've probably heard is that in reconciliation, we're trying to find about 1.5 to $2 trillion in spending reductions. Those are savings that we're trying to find for the American taxpayer. This has never been done in a reconciliation bill. Typically, you will add to the deficit, you will add to the debt in reconciliation. And in this process, we are finding savings. Much of that is coming from Medicaid work requirements for able-bodied adults, in additional eligibility checks for Medicaid, and then preventing illegal immigrants from accessing Medicaid. A lot of the savings is coming from that, but every committee is putting forth a proposal on reconciliation, and Energy and Commerce is tasked with finding about $880 billion in savings.
Wow.
And so many of those things just sound like common sense. And when we hear those things, it's just, so can you speak to the, how do you put common sense back in Washington, D.C.? Obviously, we've sent you there, and that's a great start.
Thank you. Common sense is in short supply in Washington, as is probably in every state house and in the country sometimes too. But what I try to do in my approach is to get as much information as I can to make the best decision that I can to help the most people that I can. And nobody's going to agree 100% of the time. Our constituents aren't going to agree 100% of the time. But I think we have to try to educate ourselves with as much information to make the best decisions for the most people. So that's the approach that I take. That's the approach that I preach to other members. But it does seem like common sense to want to prevent illegal immigrants from having access to Medicaid dollars. But we do have our Democrat states like California have expanded to offer benefits like Medicaid for illegal immigrants. Now that's coming out of their own state tax dollars, but understand that much like in the abortion consideration, we have the Hyde Amendment to keep federal tax dollars from going to fund abortion, but we can be considered to be subsidizing some of the illegal immigrants getting health care if we're subsidizing those health care states that provide Medicaid to illegal immigrants. So we're just trying to provide a framework that will safeguard these programs for the people that need it most. It was never really, and Medicaid was never intended to be outside of what we consider a traditional population of people. So the traditional population is what you would expect: the elderly, the disabled, pregnant women, and children. That's the traditional population. The federal government picks up 70% of every dollar going to the healthcare for the traditional population. But after the Obamacare expansion, the federal government is picking up 90% of the cost of healthcare for able-bodied adults under the expansion plan. What we're trying to do in the House is to change that dynamic so that we're protecting these programs for our most vulnerable and not giving it to people who are ineligible, and including work requirements for people who can work or can do community service in exchange for a Medicaid benefit. And again, preventing illegal immigrants from accessing the system.
Wow. It just makes, it's just common sense.
Yeah, if you're spending it in one spot, you can't spend it in another, right? So
with all the talk about Doge and stuff in the news, how are you taking some of those reports and how do you utilize that as you look at putting stuff through committee or creating bills?
Yeah, we have a Doge caucus and a Doge committee. The Doge committee is led by Marjorie Taylor Greene. The Doge caucus is about 100 members. It's actually bipartisan. We do have some Democrats that's part of it. But what we're trying to do is look at some of the savings that have been found by Doge and codify what we can. We're doing the same thing with the executive orders that have been signed by President Trump. What of these can we put into law and make those long-term for the future? And so we've been in the process of trying to substantiate the amounts of savings that Doge is finding and figuring out how we can bake that in. Much of that will come in our appropriations process for fiscal year 26, where we will be funding the government. The money that Doge has found still is in the agencies. When people say that money has been cut, it's still sitting in the agencies. It's just not being spent. Like USAID, money was they were spending crazy amounts of money on lots of woke things that the American people probably wouldn't support. We have frozen those funds, but the money is still sitting within those agencies. And so what we will hopefully do during appropriation cycle is to claw back some of that is not sitting in the agencies, but going back to the general fund, maybe going to deficit reduction. And if it's true that Elon can find $1 trillion, that's $1 trillion less every year that we're not adding to the deficit, which is significant. And we ought to be looking for ways. The federal government has never audited itself. We're doing that now, and we're doing it in the quickest way possible, probably accomplishing a full audit of the federal government within 18 months under Doge. And it's been incredible. It's really been really incredible to watch this team work, and unbelievable some of the things that they're finding.
Good. Wow. Well, one of the things that should be completely bipartisan is the production of food, fiber, feed, and fuel. And one of the things that we're kind of watching for in our industry is the Farm Bill. And can you kind of give us an update on what the status of the Farm Bill is?
We've had some significant difficulty passing a bipartisan farm bill. Some of the things that the Democrats were demanding were just not something that we were going to be doing in a farm bill. I did submit a request to the Ag Committee for farm bill priorities. These were in line with what Farm Bureau has put out. Indiana Farm Bureau and National Farm Bureau organization has put out in terms of what they would like to see. We are supporting those being included in the Farm Bill. We have to do something by September 30th on the Farm Bill. If we don't have a Farm Bill, I think what's most likely to occur is another extension of current policy. Yeah. That's not ideal, but we did get to a point under the Ag Committee, under the leadership of G.T. Thompson, who's doing an amazing job as chairman trying to navigate this. But we got to a point, and he got to a point in the Ag Committee where, the other side just wasn't being reasonable. And so we then move forward with a Republican-only farm bill and get votes in the House to move it, hopefully. The biggest rub with the Farm Bill is always on Medicaid spending and SNAP spending. The issue is, some of our most conservative members want to take SNAP out of the Farm Bill. But if we do take SNAP out of the Farm Bill, then it makes it less likely that we have votes for a Farm Bill because of the coast and their immense population and the number of members that represent those coastal states. They do outnumber the members from the Midwest and the West. And we have to have their support to pass a Farm Bill. So it does have to be a joint effort. We're working hard. G.T. Thompson's working hard. We'll get through reconciliation and get serious about not just the Farm Bill, but our appropriations for fiscal year 26 and the National Defense Authorization Act. Those are the next big things after reconciliation that we have to get through. We do plan to deal with the debt ceiling, the debt limit within reconciliation, and that's another looming issue that we're dealing with in Washington.
Wow. Yeah, I think if even if SNAP and the Medicaid portion stays in the Farm Bill, if you can clean up who's eligible for that, you could reduce a lot of those amounts, and maybe we could get both sides on board there, but who knows?
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly right. Those are some of the things that we're trying to work through to see if we can find consensus on, but you're exactly right.
Yeah.
So you also serve on the Energy and Commerce Committee, and takes energy to grow food. So what's some of the priorities right now of that committee?
Yeah, I serve on the Energy and Commerce Committee. This is a new committee for me, but I'm so grateful to be part of it. Previously, Indiana had Congressman Greg Pence and Congressman Larry Bouchon serving on the Energy and Commerce Committee. It's very important to our state, so I'm glad to be there. My subcommittees are Telecom, Commerce, Manufacturing, and Tech and Trade, and then the Health Subcommittee. So I'm focusing on a lot of those issues. I've put together a healthcare roundtable as we try to work through how we do healthcare reform. I want to have as many voices in my ear as possible to get maybe what's the low-hanging fruit consensus among a very diverse industry that is the healthcare ecosystem. But then also, broadband, speaking of DOGE, there are 137 different broadband programs implemented at the federal level. We could reduce administrative burden and administrative costs by DOGing our broadband programs to reduce the administrative overhead and put money actually to fiber or technology to get people access to the internet. Finally, Sal, you guys might appreciate I'm working on a farm property broadband access mapping bill. One of the big issues in our current broadband map is that it counts for farm homes, but it doesn't account for farm property. And so if you're talking about doing precision agriculture, we want to have access, a map which is reflective of the actual access to the entire acreage of a farm and not just a barn or a home that has internet access.
That's great, because everything we do now, people don't realize how technology driven agriculture is today. But I don't know. I mean, our machines couldn't run without
Yeah, that's well, you set up boundaries and stuff, field boundaries in these machines, and we have some blind spots. You just you lose access to that, and so that would be great. That would be great.
Well, Congresswoman, I guess one of the last things, as a conference secretary, can you kind of tell us about what that means and what that means to Indiana?
Yeah, so as a conference secretary, I was elected by House Republicans, 220 of my colleagues, to be part of the leadership team. It means that I am a member of leadership. I'm at the leadership table every week. Sometimes that means that I'm called to meetings at the White House with the president. It is an important role to have someone from our state at the leadership table. It also puts me on the steering committee to help decide what committee assignments members of Congress are placed, where they're placed, and that has helped us to really get Indiana put in a great spot moving forward with assignments on transportation, on education, on financial services, on ways and means. We are punching above our weight class as a state, and it is thanks to our participation on the steering committee that has helped to make that happen. But as well as, and I say as our members from Indiana, Rudy Yocum is a member from the Elkhart area. He's also on the steering committee and has been integral to all of that too. But, as the conference secretary, one of my main responsibilities is to mentor the new freshman class. We had about 31 new freshmen enter in the last Congress, and I am their mentor. I also help assign other members of Congress to mentor them and help shepherd them through the process. We have a lot of different educational sessions. We had one this morning on how the Rules Committee process works. But I am their liaison to the freshmen, the new members, to try to help ease their transition. It does make me, I think, the 6th or 8th most, highest ranking member of Congress as part of the leadership team. And I'm the 2nd highest ranking female in the House Republican Conference. Wow.
And it wasn't just not very long ago, you were a freshman.
Yeah, I'm in my 2nd term. First year, 2nd term.
That's awesome. That's a great feather in the cap for the state of Indiana.
Yep.
And we appreciate what you're doing out there.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
All right. Well, maybe next time you can come see us and actually be in the studio. We'll catch you when you're back in Indiana.
We'll get you a Premier Ag shirt, and we can get you set up as a Premier Ag swag that you can wear back in Washington, D.C.
That's right.
Well, that'd be great. We'll wrap the merch, as my kids would say.
Well, Congresswoman, thanks for joining us today, and that'll wrap up another episode of The High Ground, powered by Premier Companies. Thank you all very much.